Welcome back to Self-Care Saturday with ND Jones. And as always, I am proud and honored to welcome two additional guests. This time we have a brother and sister team here, the first on the channel, and I can't wait to hear what they have to say. And as always, my guests will introduce themselves, and we will begin with Miss Author Jessica Cage. Oh, Jessica, check your mic, please.
Sorry, I had to double mute it.
That's okay.
All right. Hi, and thank you for having me here. As she said, my name is Jessica Cage. I am a USA Today bestselling author of novels of fantasy that feature strong characters of color. Born and raised in Chicago, I grew up around an eclectic environment full of different cultures and people. And I looked at fantasy and I didn't see that. I didn't see that in the material that I was reading. I didn't see it in the movies that I was watching with my mother. And I just wanted to start creating those stories that I've always loved, but that put POC at the forefront. So you can find out more about me on my website, jessicacage.com, and I am J Cage author on all platforms.
That's great. And I love your rationale. I share it. I definitely share it. That's why I love your books. I love your covers. And the motivation and your passion is definitely needed in our genre. And we do feel a need. And so I'm glad that you write exactly what you do.
Thank you.
And so, Mr. Tonedalle, please.
Man, I think I should have went first. I'm not a USA Today bestseller or anything, but I am a graphic illustrator and children's book author. Actually just stepped into the children's book author field like 2 years ago with the birth of my child. What I want to say I'd like to brag about the most is I'm really just a proud family man. Mm-hmm. That's a large part of my brand as I expand out is encouraging community, encouraging family. And yeah, that's what I got.
No, I mean, and you never have to preface anything the way you just did. What you bring to the table is what you bring. And that's going to be always enough when you're working hard and you're living up to your best potential. And you have a vision and you have those goals and you're a good person. See, to me, I mean, that good person, you can have a person with all this stuff, if they're not a good person, and if they're not living their life in the right way and helping other people. So yeah, don't ever preface anything like that. You don't have to. You are here for a very good reason, very good reason. And I thank you for coming on the channel today. So my first question, you are going to have a chance to go first now. So for you, what does it mean to be a Black man in the 21st century?
Ooh. Ooh. So for me, what it means to be a Black man in the 21st century is, what's the word I'm looking for? Not so much to overcome, but to be the change. As one of the things that I've found within myself over the years is that I had been stuck on a lot of like generational habits or bad habits, so to say, things that was instilled within my mom, from her mom, her mom, that maybe wasn't the most healthiest things in regards to how I carried myself in the spirit of family, how I carried myself in just everyday life. So I think as a Black man, and being aware, especially once you become aware of how much the Black family has been torn apart and broken down, I think it means in the 21st century to be the change, to step up in yourself and be the difference that you want to be, and take accountability for the things that you are or aren't doing, so that you can set a better example moving forward, not just for your children, but for the people that are looking up to you that you may not be aware of.
Yeah, wow, excellent. And I actually, not right now, but I have a follow-up question that you probably will be able to extend a little bit of that. So thank you. Accountability, what a great word. But I like what you said, accountability for what you're doing and what you are not doing, because you still have to give yourself credit for the things that you are doing that's working well, that's positive. And we know accountability for the other piece, but also acknowledgement of the good stuff that you have, because it's not all bad, right? It's not all areas of growth. Sometimes there's really good stuff there. Thank you. And Jessica, what does it mean to be a Black woman in this society?
To be a Black woman, at least for me, is to break the stereotypes. For me personally, in my professional life, it's always been, trying to hold myself so I don't come across as, the angry Black woman or the ghetto Black woman or whatever the stereotypes that are expected of me. And just existing peacefully. I think that often Black women are not given the space to just be vulnerable and to have peace. And that's been one of my biggest struggles, like in adulthood, is just accepting vulnerability and letting my guard down and allowing myself to have peace. And I realized for a long time, I did not accept happiness. I didn't know how, because I was always on guard. And I think that coming into myself and finding my place in this world, I realized I could not do that if I didn't allow myself to just, relax and exist without, taking in everybody else's expectations of what I was supposed to be. And I'm seeing a huge shift just in social media, in my friends, and the women in my life, where Black women are finally allowing themselves to be vulnerable and to let their guard down. And I think it's a beautiful change. It's so wonderful to see.
It is. And every time I do this, and pull back, so I hear the same words come out of different people's mouths. And so, when hopefully when people start to watch one segment to another, I think it really sheds a light on really what it means to be a Black person society. Because how else do you explain that you have people from all different types of walks of life, but we're still saying the same thing? And so I've had many conversations in which the word vulnerable was used. And I had a sister, as a fact, is Kamisha Hodge from my first episode. And in the end, I asked her what she wanted. She said peace. And so, and then you just mouthed that as well. But it is something there, and there's a pattern that I'm seeing. So I'm thinking one of these days, I'll probably have to look at everything and really outline a lot of the patterns that we're seeing, because our experiences, while we are very different, that I think our gender and our race make our experiences eerily similar. And so I'm going to ask you this, Jessica, because I think it's somewhere here on all these papers that I have, that I think is important for what your answer to my first question. So what does trust, in terms of vulnerability, what does trust look, feel, or sound like for Jessica?
Oh, that's a huge question.
I know.
That's actually, I've been asking myself that question a lot lately. I am not one that is easy to trust. And that's just dealing with past trauma.
Right.
But I think that looks like patience. It looks like understanding and communication. And it looks like just a safe space, which can be hard to find, especially in the world that we live in. Like, everyone's ready to take out their phone and post everything online. And it's like, who can I share these, my deepest feelings and thoughts with? So yeah, that trust to me is something that I rarely am, free to give, but like once it's broken, it's pretty much it. I'm over it. I'm done. But yeah, I look to find something that's comfortable, that doesn't feel forced. Because I think a lot of times when you come in encounter with new people, it's like trust me, like they're, trying to pull you out of it. And it's like, let me get there on my own time, be patient with me, because I'm one of those people who, I'm still working through my own traumas. So.
Okay. All right, because I was going to ask you when you said patience, you said like 3 words in the beginning, and I was wondering if you meant those words for yourself or if you meant them for someone else. But at the end, you just said patience with you.
I think I mean it on both ends, though.
Okay.
I'm not patient with myself. I'm very much, I see one thing and I run, you know what I mean? And that's one of the things that I'm trying to get away from. And that's in personal, professional, like all areas of my life. I am the red flag. I'm looking for the red flag. And sometimes I feel like by looking for the red flag, you kind of create the red flag that may not have even been there, So I think it definitely goes both ways. Yes.
Excellent points. What about you, Tonedalle? What does trust look, feel, or sound like for you?
I would say definitely I agree with the consistency, hand in hand with reliability and acceptance, as far as if I had to describe what it looked like. I can say feel, it's, as far as trust, I don't know if there's a consistent feeling with trust, because I think trust is both comfort and discomfort. For me, I've through my experiences in life, my trust looks very different than most people, because when it comes to me, I trust you to be who you show me to be, and there it is. There's not much more. So even if you could say if you say I love you, but your actions show one thing, I will trust you to be what your actions show, and so I can continue forward with my communications with a person while trusting them to be who they've continually showed me to be. And that's where that it can be like that uncomfortability can come from, as far as like, it's depending on the situation, it can be uncomfortable to have to like look someone in the eye and say, hey, this is how much I trust you. And it's an uncomfortable conversation to have, because a lot of people can't take for you to be like, yeah, like I trust you as far as I can throw you, but it's cool, you still my homie. You know what I'm saying? Most people want to hear you be like, yeah, I trust you with my life. And that's not always the case. So for me, trust is it's flexible, it's malleable. It's kind of similar to what Jessica was saying. It's based on how you treat me, how what your actions are towards me. But if you consistently show me that you're independable, then I trust you to be independable, and we can keep on moving forward. Just with me trusting that you'll be who you continue to act like.
Yeah. Wow, good. So you're really bearing that based on a person's actions, which makes sense, right? Their behaviors. But I love, you had a great quote in there. I probably pulled that out about trust being a level of comfort, but also a level of discomfort. Because sometimes that trust, I think it goes right back to what Jessica was saying about making yourself vulnerable and choosing the right people that you can make yourself vulnerable to, because that's important. Because if like you say, if they feel like they break your trust, then it makes it perhaps more difficult to give it to the next person. That's great. So I'm gonna begin with Tonedalle first. So what words, images? I have a thing about 3s, guys. So just so if you ever read any of my novels, I do have a thing about 3s. So here we go again. What words, images, and or people come to mind when you think of the word resilience?
This isn't even me being like fun, like trying to be biased here, but one of the people that come to mind when I think of resilience is actually my sister. In many ways, like she's a really big inspiration to me. I think about where we come from our youth, where she's come from mentally and emotionally, and with a lot of experiences that she's had with people and with family, and just the strength that she's continually showed me watching her grow. I'm 4 years younger than her, so like and especially when we were younger, early 20s, like I had one person to look up to, and it was her. And I watched how she walked and how she maneuvered, having a child and still working constantly and grinding. So like at some point, I think she was working two jobs, had her son and writing books. And I was like, yo, this woman's crazy. So when I think resilience and I think someone who just pushing forward, she's one of the first people that I think about. And the fact that she still finds it in her heart to have space to love and room to smile and, just be a light when she's on her, on her best day. And then also I just I think of art. It's probably been one of the things that's helped get me through life, just art in general, whether it's cooking or dancing. The resilience of it standing the test of time, going through, even think of where America is now, where in schools, it's a movement to have basically art removed from schools, but it's still prominent. It reshapes and it reforms and it molds itself to fit society. It just starts to look different. And so those to me are the two things. When I think of resilience, I think of how art just continually evolves, even if you don't think it will, or if you don't expect it to. And then, I think of my sister, who's one of my biggest inspirations.
Wow. That's all I have to say with that. That was wow. I loved everything that you said. Is beautifully said, deeply felt. I could see that. And I'm sure your sister, I hope she's not weeping over there, but what you said was definitely cry worthy.
So yeah, I'm like trying not to.
Try not to. That's that's one of the best things that you can hear, that your struggle has empowered someone else. It's beautifully said. So for you, Jessica, what words, images, or people come to mind when you think of resilience?
I first think of my grandmother, not so much for the things that she went through, because she went through, the ringer. I think as a Black woman in America, we all tend to, but of the lessons she taught me through my life. If I think back on the hardest moments of my existence, my grandmother and her words were there. And I'm gonna try not to get choked up because we did lose her last year.
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you. But yeah, so she was the one telling me that I was strong no matter what people thought of me. She was the one when I had those moments when I was working 2 jobs, writing books, and she would come in my room and sit with me and rub my back and let me know it was okay. She was my support in those moments when I needed to be resilient, when I needed that strength. So I can't not consider that and not think of her. She was also the reason I'm an author now. I used to write stories for my grandmother. I would only let her read them. And that's where my journey as an author began, which I've had to be resilient through that course because, of course, I didn't take the road most traveled with that. I tried to pave my own way. And she was right there, cheering me on. But also, like my brother said, art. We come from a family full of artists, whether they explore that professionally or not. And I think it has always been an escape. It's been the place that felt like home, even when the real world didn't. And I'm keep these emotions in. But that's what it's been for us. Me and my brother used to sit and draw pictures together. And we imagined our futures together. Art was that for us, you know what I mean? Whether we knew it at the time or not, that was us building a foundation through art. And it has changed through our lives. Tonedalle is an amazing artist. I brag on him all the time. I'm the one that's out here because I know where he's come from and I know what art means to him. And I know how it feels to hear him say, when this man speaks poetry, the entire room is bawling. Because it's him, it's his soul, it's his passion. And I think that at the base of resilience is a foundation in self, and it's a foundation in belief of what can come. And I believe that art gave us that. When we were, on the south side of Chicago, not in the greatest neighborhood. We found art, and I feel like that anchored us, and that gave us a foundation to build on.
Man, the two of you are killing me over here. I mean, you are like in the most amazing, beautiful way. I'm enjoying listening to your story, to your reflection. And I know there's a deep well. Every time you mention something, you could tell you come from a deep well, things that's going on. And it's just there, and it's beautiful. And I want to selfishly ask your brother to recite something. And so I'm gonna put a pin in that. So as we're progressing through the rest of this interview, think about what you already have, memorized, or you could put hands on. And if you want to do that at some point towards the end, or whenever you can, I'm just putting it out there. Your sister said it. And so you have this venue to do that if you want. So I'm gonna ask her another question and let that marinate with you for a few minutes. So Jessica, and it's for both of you. So I always give people an option of which one they want to answer. Describe a time in your life in which you felt either truly resilient, or a time in your life in which you felt you weren't as resilient as you wanted or needed to be.
Ooh. Now, I will preface this by saying I'm a crybaby. So this whole thing is gonna have me like near tears. But a time where I felt like I wasn't as resilient as I needed to be. When my last grandmother passed away, and this was very recent, I fell apart. I wasn't even like close to that side of my family, but it was this, in my work, there's always a tree, right? It's every book I've written, there's this tree that is important and is often connected to a grandmother, okay? And that's where I found roots. It's where I'm connected. It's where everything comes together. And my last grandmother passed away. And my brother knows this because I fell apart. I was like on the bathroom floor crying with the shower running. Like, that's how broken I felt. And in that moment, it was like this understanding of like the matriarchy. It came down a level, right? And above me is just my mother now. And then it's me. And it's like, am I strong enough to be the roots of this foundation, And I was not expecting this. It's coming from that part of like the Black woman vulnerability, right? I had a moment of being like, you're not supposed to be like this. You're not supposed to be breaking. You're supposed to be strong, right? And I wish in that moment that I allowed myself to feel what I was supposed to feel, to connect with what was happening, because I shut it all off. And now here it is a year later, and I'm still like, just trying to feel it, And I feel like if I had more resilience, and I think when we think of resilience, we think of like this, I'm strong, I'm fighting. And that's not always what it is,
Not at all.
Sometimes it's allowing yourself to feel and be in the moment. And I did not allow that, I was like, nope, dust myself off, get up. I got to be a mama. I can't deal with this. And I'm like, at that moment, with all the healing of my journey with therapy and, I feel like in that moment, I just threw out all of everything that I learned. And I went back to the, big sister Jess, I got to make sure we're good. I got to forget what I'm feeling and make sure everybody else is okay. That is a moment I wish I could go back to and like tap myself on the shoulder and say, hey, it's okay to feel this. It's okay to live in this for a moment and understand what this impact has on you. Because here you are a year later, still trying to figure it out,
Yeah, 100%. I think that in that moment, that's where the strength is, that you allow yourself to feel, that you give yourself permission to break down and say, it is okay. Now, we know that we can't always stay there, but to think that we don't have a right to be there, that we don't have a right to struggle with the passing of a loved one. No, I think exactly what you said is correct. And if we view the whole trope of a strong Black woman, we don't give ourselves room for exactly what you just described. And that's why it's a freaking terrible trope. But because you write badass women, I write badass women, but you have to make them three-dimensional.
Yes.
You have to humanize them. They can't just go out there, just beat up people, use their magic or whatever it is. There has to be that three-dimensional human personal element to it as well, in which they feel, and they feel deeply, and they act off of the wide range of emotions. That's what you write.
I think that's another part of it. Like you said, we write strong women, but we allow them to be three-dimensional, but then we don't always allow ourselves to do that. And that's a hard thing. So that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes.
It is. And maybe that's what we're telling ourselves in our stories.
Yeah.
Right. I love the tree. We know what the tree symbolizes in our community, and that was beautifully stated. And what about you, Tonedalle?
Oh man. I guess it would be relatively recent. So this year I got married, and leading into it, first of all, we paid for like everything out of pocket, which I still think about sometimes. I'm like, Jesus Christ. But so one of the things that one of my plans pre-COVID was to transition out of my current job. I'm a flight attendant. So early this year, I was like, okay, let's get it. I was able to take a lot of time off and really focus in on my craft and build clientele, and really just started getting the ball rolling. And it really it's going really solid, really well. But like halfway through the year, as the wedding got closer and the expenses piled up, I'm like, yeah, I'm making money, but like not enough to pay the rest of the way for this wedding. And then we had a little surprise. We pregnant again, so we have a child on the way. So I started thinking about, okay, we got to pay for this wedding. We have to now make sure we start setting up funds for the second child. And I'm looking at like the income that I'm making just off of like the freelance work, and I kind of go into a panic state. One of the things that I was doing on the side also is investing. Like I started getting into stocks and cryptocurrency, and I built a decent portfolio. It was doing really well, enough for me to just like leave it alone and be fine. And so for me, that resilience was less on the dealing with emotions side and more on the removing emotions. So what I needed to do is still myself and to eliminate and to not be so emotional about everything that was going on, and be patient and trust my process. But I for me, I don't like feeling as though I'm putting my family at risk. So it was hard to remove that feelings of emotion. So I ended up blowing up my portfolio just to make sure, like just to make a way. And I did end up going back to work, that's fine. That part was fine. But it's really the portfolio part where I needed to be more resilient and stay patient and trust in that process, and allow that to do what it's intended to do. And, in hindsight, it's like, I could have left it alone. We would have been fine either way. But I think at the time it was more important to me to make sure we were fine financially and give myself that peace of mind. But now that I've went through it, I've experienced it, and I've learned, it's like, okay, now I know how to remove the emotions from what I'm experiencing and like slow it down and process it and work through it.
That's good. Thank you. In the book, I outlined like 7 types of self-care. And one of them, which made me think of the story that you told, is financial self-care. A lot of times we kind of just think, oh, self-care is just, physical. It's not simply physical. And so here you are, a young man, and you're trying to make sure that you have what you need for your family. And family is like a huge motivator for people to do a lot of different things. Some good, some not so much. But so keep in mind when you think about your self-care and your future for your family, the financial piece is hugely important. And it reduces a lot of what you're saying about that anxiety, that nervousness, that fear that you may not have enough, because we've all had those situations where we don't have enough, that what we need to pay and what we have to do it don't always match up. So financial self-care is extremely important. So I would say kudos for you for even really having to think that way and keep planning out with that. That's good. I'm looking down here at my questions, but I think I'm going to ask you guys just a couple more. So Tonedalle, you talked about this, I think, in one of your questions early on, which made me really want to ask you about feelings and emotions. It's for both of you, of course. So if you think back to maybe how you were raised or what you were exposed to as a young person, what did you learn about feelings and emotions? And what I mean by that is sometimes we're taught because we just see what people do, right? We hear them, it's modeled to us. And other times it's because the adults in their life are very explicit. So if you think back to what you learned about feelings and emotions, what did that look like for you? What did you learn?
Oh, that's kind of loaded. So very early on, I learned that the average person doesn't understand the full spectrum of emotions, especially in the Black community. As a child, I would feel frustrated, or I would feel anxious, or I would feel nervous. And a lot of times when, I was I would speak to one of my elders, their assumption was either that I was sad or angry. And as a child, you don't necessarily know the right words for it. So when they're like, what are you sad about? And you're trying to explain, well, no, I'm not sad. I'm hurt, or like understanding that those are two different things. And as a child, not being able to fully express which emotion I'm feeling, but also not being around elders who were aware that that spectrum is so broad, and it's a vibrant spectrum that we feel daily. And with that being said, I learned very early on that, like, yeah, a lot of people aren't aware of that spectrum, and a lot of people don't know how to tap into that spectrum, which makes it really hard to handle children in our community, because our kids don't always have the words to say what they're feeling. And it's up to us, I feel as though, to, like, as a father, I feel like it's my job to do my part to make sure I can understand what my child is experiencing, so I can help them through it, help her through it. Hopefully it's a son that's on the way, help him through it. And, that's something that I didn't have growing up. And so that's been really, really important to me. And then also the flip side of that is, I learned about emotions is how to cut them off, how to turn, like, flip of a switch, how to just, like, shut it down. Kind of the cliche, African American tale. My father wasn't present. He was addicted to drugs. My mother struggled with her own vices. So we were raised by our grandparents for the most part. And for me, growing up in a household that was predominantly women, my granddad was present, but he worked all the time. Like, gone all day, come home, eat, go to sleep. That was like my grandfather. So for me, it was really difficult because I didn't have a place. Like, not only was I the middle child, so I was too young to be here and too old to be there, but I was the only boy, really. So even in the spots where I was allowed, where I could hang out with the other kids, for the most part, it was like girly stuff. So I'm sitting there most of the time in my own little world, which is where I think I was, coming full circle. Which is where I was able to find art and fall in love with art, because emotionally, I was always spiraling. probably since when I about the age of 5. So from like 5 to 17, it's just an emotional blitz, an emotional spiral, because I struggle with my self-identity. I struggle with my confidence. I struggle with understanding just, in a question I feel like is commonly asked in a broken household by the child is like, why am I here? Like, why did they have me if I have no purpose? And, that's one of those things that if I understood how to process my emotions, or if someone was there to help me understand how to process those emotions, maybe I could have navigated better. But instead, I just learned how to turn it off and just kind of operate like, okay, if it don't make sense logically, then I don't think about it. And if it makes sense logically, I move forward. So, yeah, I mean, I guess long story short, my childhood taught me a lot about emotions in regards to people being unaware of what the spectrum is, and also how to turn it on and off, because for a child dealing with all of those questions and all those thoughts, it can be overbearing and overwhelming. So
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing all that, because 5 to 17, that's a long time.
yeah.
That's a long time. And I think, I can't remember which one of you said in the very beginning about breaking generational practices.
Yeah, I said that.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that kind of goes along with what you talked about there, at least as far as how I'm hearing it. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. And so what about you, Jessica? What did you learn about emotions as you were coming up?
My biggest lesson about emotions happened right after my father passed away. My mother, who now I understand that she didn't intend it the way my young ears took this message, but she told me that I was not allowed to use my father's death as a crutch. And now, as an adult, I understand that she was trying to help me, find strength and move forward. And my mom was young when she had us. Like, she was a teen. She was 16 when she had me. So she was still learning these lessons herself. So as an adult, I understand that now. But back then, as a kid, I heard that emotions were a crutch, that this was not something I was allowed to share. And so even as an adult now, I have a lot of difficulties processing and understanding my own emotions. And it's something that I think I will have to work at for the rest of my life because of this. But quite like my brother said, I turned to creating stories. So when I felt really strong emotions that I didn't feel I was allowed to express outwardly, I would come up with these stories inside my head, I would imagine my father coming back to life, and I was able to have those conversations with him, because I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel safe to share a lot of what I was feeling. And I think when you're a kid, you want to feel safe. You want to feel like I can open my mouth and the people around me are going to accept what I say, and they're going to nurture me, and they're going to help me through it. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel that for a very long time. And again, like I said, my mom was young. She was, 20 something. Like, she was just starting to understand it herself, because again, this is a generational thing. It's not something that comes from one person. It's passed down, And as I grew up, I started to look around me and understand, like my brother said, most of our family did not understand how to handle or process emotions. When they had a problem, it was a fight. People ended up in jail. Like, that was the environment we grew up in. And one of the things that we did is we went to therapy. We started seeking counseling. We didn't want to just accept that this was what life was and, pass it down to our children. With my son, I'm very open with him. We have direct dialogue. When he has emotions, I'm like, all right, let's sit down, let's talk about it. There was a time when he said he didn't understand how to process his emotions. He didn't want to speak to me about it. I say, well, we're going to find you a professional. Mm-hmm. We're going to get you a counselor. We're going to take you to the doctor so they can help you, because I understand you're a young boy. I'm a woman. Like, there are things that I'm just not going to understand. Right. But it's like, that's what I wish I had when I grew up. You know what I mean? And it's that generational, we are, if nothing else, me and my brother have always talked to each other about not passing on the generational trauma of our family. And for a while, I felt like we were pushed away from the family. A lot of like our uncles and aunties, they didn't want us around their kids because they thought we were bad news because of the way we were thinking about our future, because we weren't going to accept, this is how it works and this is how it's always going to work. So we were kind of outcasts for a little bit there, because they thought we were like rebellious and we're going to like turn the kids against them. And it's like, no, we're just having dialogue, and it was nice when we both got to the age where we could start having those dialogues, because again, he's 4 years younger than me. So I wasn't like 12 talking to my 8-year-old brother about, about generational trauma. Like I didn't know what that was at the time. But when we got to the age where it was like, look, we want better for the future generations of our family. We want to create our own traditions and practices when it comes to dealing with emotions, dealing with finance, and all of these things that they weren't even a discussion point growing up. No one ever talked to us about how to handle money. No one ever talked to us about even planning for our future. It just wasn't a thing. So yeah, I think that was the biggest lesson for me, and the hardest one to unlearn. Because not all lessons are ones that we're supposed to, take with us and make a part of who we are. Unfortunately, it was like another, decade and a half before I realized like, whoa, that's not accurate. I shouldn't navigate emotions like that. I should, feel them and be okay with that. So for my brother, his was like, how do I turn it off? And I'm trying to figure out how to, turn it back on so we can kind of meet somewhere in the middle.
I mean, thank you for that. And you, through that process, you really made, I think, great connections, which I actually make in the book, because I was going to ask you, but you answered it, because I think we have to understand like what it is that we learn, how did we learn it, from whom, right? Because we all learned emotions in different ways, from our parents primarily, from my grandparents, from our primary socialization. But then the second piece, what you really got into about your son is, okay, now that we're an adult, what are we doing with our own kids? What do we now believe as adults about emotions and feelings? And you really nicely covered that, because I was wondering about, when you became a mom, like, would you make a very purposeful decision that I'm going to do this because of work, or man, I'm never going to do this with my child because that didn't work, and I know exactly how it did not work. And I think we make those decisions even when we have, maybe, like I said, the best parents in the world, but not everything your parents do you agree with or are the best. So that was definitely the question that I wanted to ask you. And I will say this about your rebellion. It was a rebellion, but in the best possible way. Oh, I know you said they thought you were being rebellious or whatever. But I'm like, yeah, because those are things that probably need to be rebelled against. And like you said, you had to fight your family, but sometimes you have to fight. I don't mean like fight, but you know what I mean. But yeah, it is a fight, because it's a fight for your life. It's a fight for your mental safety, all those things. And so sometimes it's not even other people you have to deal with, it's your own family, because maybe they don't know you're learning, doing something that's different. And that is a challenge for people. It is a challenge. That's really, really good. Thank you. I think I just want to ask you guys a couple of questions. I feel like I'm taking blood from you. And that's not my intention. But everything I hear today, and everything you are reflecting on, one, you've already done this work way before we've had this conversation. But the work that you've put in is exactly what I'm hoping that people get out of the journal. It's the reason why that I wrote this the way that I did, because if we can't at least have the conversation beginning with ourselves, then how can we really start to have the conversation with other people? If we can't trust our own mind and our own hearts, then how can we open ourselves up to trust someone else? even when you mentioned therapy a few times, and so did my other guests. But that's a trust right there. Now, sometimes it might be easy to trust a stranger because you're like, I don't have to see you ever again, you know. So sometimes it is easier, but still, you have to look at someone and you have to have that discourse with them. So I do appreciate that, because that's an important part of self-care. And I think it's important sometimes, really, with the Black community, that we know it's okay to seek that type of professional help. And so now, as we move into self-care, and I'll ask, I'm pretty much sure I pronounced your name probably like a 50,000 different ways while we've been on here, and I do apologize for that. But I want to ask you, if we move into self-care, what does your self-care routine look like? What do you do deliberately to really take care of the whole body?
You talking to me?
Yes.
Okay. Sheesh. Where do I begin? It's I'm very big on self-care. It would, like, deliberately, I make sure I make space for meditation.
Okay.
It doesn't, and contrary to what people believe, meditation doesn't always mean sitting on the floor with your legs crossed. Like, no. Sometimes when you're driving, you get to a red light and you're sitting at that red light, you take that 30 seconds to inhale and exhale and center yourself, and you breathe. So I'm intentional about meditation. I am intentional about gratitude, rather than saying, oh, I have to go to work. Oh, I have to change my kid's diaper. I have to make these. I get to work and provide for my family. I get to feed my children. I get to, share these moments with my family. So just reframing my mindset.
Yes.
I work out constantly as much as I can. I try to encourage my family to work out. That's kind of more of a battle from everybody, from my wife to my sister to my mom. But I spend a lot of time making sure I replenish myself. I'm a firm believer of, you are what you feed yourself. So I try to feed myself life constantly. And I try to, take the necessary steps to, if I do feel that inkling of negativity, I'm trying to find a way to remove it. But also staying aware that, the universe is chaos. So, like, it's not always going to be light. And it's allowing myself also to feel, if I don't feel my best that day, or if I'm having a moment of sadness, it's allowing myself to feel that sadness, but not to live in it. Sometimes I just watch The Harder They Fall. It is an amazing movie. But everything about that movie reminded me of my grandmother. Is sitting and watching Westerns, and the scenes, my grandmother would get so into it, where like something would happen and she'd clap, or she'd be like, that's good, and those scenes happened throughout, and it was so beautiful, and it was something that I wish you could have seen, because it was us. It wasn't whitewashed, it was beautifully done. So like, I had a moment of grief, many throughout the film, and it's allowing myself to feel that, because also understanding that although it's not a most positive feeling, it's good for my soul to be able to say, okay, I miss my grandmother and I wish she was here for this moment. So I'm very intentional about allowing myself to feel, and very intentional about taking the steps to heal. Not trying to be all poetic or, but like, taking those steps to heal. It's through therapy, one of the things that I learned is that, like, there's always constant change, and I have to treat myself and my mind as much. It's not easy, but it's simple. And that's kind of the steps. It's just always working to grow, and always, I'm fortunate that I'm surrounded by people that, encourage me and that support my lifestyle and my way of thinking. Even if we don't always agree, they're still like, yeah, keep pushing forward. So that helps. But
yeah. Wow. Beautifully said. That mindset is super important. Thank you for sharing that. So well said. Jessica, what about your self-care? What does it look like for you?
It looks like, my brother, meditation. I think I started meditation around maybe 15 years ago. And it's been, I'm not always consistent with it. But when I know that I'm better when I do it, you know, and like you said, it's not always sitting, you know, it's small moments in between meetings or, you know, sometimes I meditate before I go sit with my son and watch, you know, YouTube videos, you know what I mean? Just to get myself in the right mind space. Because he gets so involved and I'm just like waiting for it to end. But it's like, I have to get myself there and allow myself to give him the time that he needs. I think for me, setting healthy boundaries and respecting others' boundaries is a huge thing for me, right? And one of my son's boundaries, whether it seems like one or not, is that he does not do long movies. He's not sitting there, but he takes value in me sitting and watching a 10-minute YouTube video. Nice. Where to me, this 10-minute YouTube video may be agonizing, you know what I mean? But as a mother, I feel like we forget that we have to prepare ourselves for our children just as much as the rest of the world. So I will take that to, you know, 30 seconds to say, okay, Woosah, let's get out of the author head. Let's get out of the working head. Let's fully get into mother. And I think that's been something that has been so healthy for me since becoming a mother, is learning how to navigate from one space to another and taking those moments in between, because if I don't, it becomes overwhelming and then I pass on that feeling to my child. And that's one of my biggest things, is that I don't want to pass on my, you know, negative or, you know, energy towards my child. So meditation has been huge for me. And then journaling, just taking the time to, you know, process what I've been through in a day and understand, and like he said, show gratitude. So I always make sure that whenever I end my journal passage, I end it with things that I'm grateful for, things that I was happy for throughout the day. Even if it's like, you know, the hangnail came off and it didn't rip off my whole fingernail, you know,
that's
simple
real.
things, but like I was worried about that nail.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yes. So it's the smallest things that will, you know, it helps keep us, you know, keep that energy up. But then it's also like the physical care. As a parent, and my brother, you know, they got another one coming. So it's like, you have to remember to take care of your physical being. Like, I know my brother wants me to be like in a gym with him every day. I'm sorry, brother, that's not gonna happen. But it's like making sure I wash my face, because sometimes I get up and I'm like, oh, I got to get him going. And then it's the next thing. And it's 11 o'clock and I still haven't even washed my face yet. It's things like that. So I actually put a habit former on my phone.
Nice.
That's like, did you drink your 8 ounces of water? Did you wash your face? Like before you leave your space to go and be mom and be Jessica and whoever, did you take care of these very small things? Because it makes an impact on your day, right? About 2 weeks ago, I started the habit of just drinking 8 ounces of water every morning before I, like the water sitting next to me on the bed. You know, I get up, wake up, yawn, and I drink my water. And it has made such a huge difference in just how I feel throughout the day, right? It's like very small habits that have such a big impact. So I right now am focusing on those things. And I know a lot of people like take a spa day, get your massage, like that's not realistic for my life right now, but drinking that water every morning and stretching before bed every night, that's realistic and it helps me feel better. You know what I mean? And I think that's what we need to find. We need to find small, like things that we can repeat, you know what I mean? Actions that we can continue to take that they build up. All those small actions build up into creating this healthier environment for mind, body, spirit. And eventually I'm working back towards the exercise part. Like I used to be in super good shape and I want to get back there, but I had a health scare that I was like, I'm a single mama. I can't do this. You know, it's my heart, you know, and they thought it was a heart issue. It turned out to be a nerve issue. And now my doctor's like, for about 3 years now, he's like, you could go back to doing what you were before, but it's a place of fear where it's like, no, like, did you understand what the pain I was feeling? And I do want to get back to that. So I'm starting to gradually, you know, just do Pilates again, you know what I mean? Because it's a low impact and it's something that I know I can do 2 to 3 times a week without stressing myself out. But again, I'm very big on small repetitive actions that build towards that healthy environment for self.
Wow. Yeah. Man, you two are awesome. Beautifully, beautifully said. And I do think you make a great point. Self-care doesn't mean you have to throw a lot of money at it. As a matter of fact, everything that except for the therapy, everything you name for as your self-care is free. There's no price tag attached to any of that stuff. You know, yes, you go to the gym, things like that, that of course it's monetary, but money need not be a barrier for you to have a good self-care routine. And I thank you for bringing that up. It was worth said, and you're the first person to do so in the least so in an eloquent manner. So I think I'm just going to ask you guys two questions, and then Tonedalle, did you want to?
Yeah, I can do a poll.
Okay, all right. So let me
find my tissue.
Oh man, I'm so excited. So I'm gonna ask you guys these last two questions, and then they're actually gonna be fast. I'm trying to think which one I want to ask you. Whose turn is it to go first? Is it Jessica's turn?
Yeah, it's my turn.
Okay, so Jessica, complete the sentence. I love
my son. That's my first thought. It's him. He brings me such happiness and motivation and reflection. Like I see so much through him. It gives me hope for the future. So yeah.
That's wonderful. And then Tonedalle, for you, complete this sentence. I am.
I am complete.
Mm.
And I'm not saying, I don't mean complete in the sense that there's no more room for like me to evolve or grow, but hopefully throughout that conversation, one of the things that's become evident is like I put a lot of work into healing and to growth, and just to have not for it to be like a dietary thing, but like a lifestyle. So I feel complete in myself. I love myself.
Good.
And I am proud of my attributes. I'm proud of my flaws, and I feel more so. I'm okay. So I mean, all bubbly because I'm about to talk about my wife, but like, since one thing that everyone's like, well, what do you like? Do you feel any different since like the wedding day? Normally I'm really nonchalant. I'm like, no, I mean, it's the same, like, you know, but like since the days it like passed since like our big wedding day, I have woken up every day and I felt light, like super light. And it's in part because yes, our union, but it's been enlarged because everything that, you know, referencing what my sister said, we've sat and we've written down about things that we want in our life and things that we want to accomplish. I found to this point, as I continue to grow and continue to do more, like I have accomplished so much. And there's this piece of, yeah, moving forward, like the growth that's coming is gonna get uncomfortable. We gotta endure some things. We've had to make some sacrifices. And so it's not gonna be an easy process moving forward, but like I'm able to still rejoice in the moment now of like, I have my sister, I have my sisters, I have my brother, I have my mother, I have my child is healthy. Like I get to wake up and I get to breathe because all of the hard work, all of the tears, all of the struggles and the pain, like it feels so worth it. And so I feel each day when I wake up, I feel complete because like my life isn't perfect, but it's perfect for me. And it's what I work hard on and I work hard for. And on the outside looking in, it may, for other people, it may seem fluid and it may seem easy, but God, like, damn it, I grind. Like, we grind constantly. My sister and I, we had our first spat earlier this year since we were like teenagers, where we were like beefing and didn't speak for a few weeks, like legit. Like, so like we grind constantly, and the result is that the outside aesthetic looking in is that like, oh yeah, this, they got it, but we still figuring it out, but we work so hard that it's starting to look easy, which is great. And so I feel complete in myself, and I feel complete in my love for life and for family as I continue to learn and I continue to challenge myself and grow.
Every time I finish listening to one of you, now I have a pretty decent vocabulary, but I keep boiling down to this simple 3-letter word, which is wow. I mean, I just don't know. I mean, and then what I was thinking too was that you're such a joy. Everything about this interview has been such a joy to listen to you both. I mean that sincerely. You haven't had me turn up. I don't know if you could tell I have these glasses on, but I feel everything that you are saying. And yeah, just wow and joy. And I appreciate that. So this is my last question. And then I'm gonna just leave everything up to you, sir. My last question is, and I always say this, and it's really open to interpretation. What is the color of your resilience? What is the color of your resilience?
Man, Jesse, you want to take this first?
I can. I don't know if you can see in my background, but right now it's browns, oranges.
I can.
Very in nature. I think there's something in, like, once I crossed 30, that became, I transformed. Like, I was very much blues and, but something about just like a deep mahogany, it makes me feel strong. Like, if I close my eyes and I think of everything that I've come through and everything that I've, experienced and learned, it's highlighted in these really rich tones of just browns, oranges, and that. And I can't explain why, but recently I was experiencing a shift, right? I moved to Georgia to be closer to my brother and my wonderful niece, because I'm like, I'm going to be a part of her upbringing as long as I can. And when I got here, my world kind of got flipped upside down, right? My job laid me off, even though they approved me to move. I got here, like, literally my first day back to work, they was like, oh, by the way, we're laying everybody off. And I was like, what? But in that moment, I found resilience, because I could have broken down. I could have cried. I could have been like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I literally just looked out the window at the trees and I felt peace. I was like, you know what? I've been saying I wanted to move into a direction of, being full-time in my author career and spending more time on self, and looking at the trees and looking at dirt. And I'm like, we're in this new foundation, this is an opportunity for me to grow. And it just made me want to, like, sit in it, you know what I mean? And feel that. But when I close my eyes and I think of my future, I think of trees, and that ties it back to my grandmothers and that whole, like, circle of connectivity, right? So that's what it looks like to me. It looks like dirt and branches and fall leaves, the changing of the colors. That's what it looks like to me. That's what it feels like.
Awesome. Thank you. What about you? What's the color of your resilience?
Oh man. I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna say lavender. I'm very I would like to think that it was like I know internally I'll be feeling all like vibrant and like high vibrational, but like the reality is I'm a very calm person. Like, even when I'm stressed or anxious, like, I'm typically relatively calm. Like, the most excited you'll hear me is probably talking like when I'm playing with my kid or like, you know, talking about my daughter. Otherwise, I'm pretty just like, you know, pretty level. And when I think, I don't know, I guess when I think of lavender, I think about how soothing it is and how just the color tone, not even talking about the scent, but like the color, like it's very relaxing and it's comforting and it's inviting. And oftentimes, like if you think about spas, like it's one of the color tones that they use to help you feel welcome and invited. And while my resilience is stern and solid, and you know very forward moving, it's also calm enough to and allow people to feel like, okay, I can come in this space and I can feel welcome and not like I gotta be in the war room with this person. So I think that's my color.
Beautiful, beautiful. I hear that color a lot. A lot of people will say like purple, lavender, and I think for many of the same reason you just explained. Okay, that's the end of my part of our interview and our discussion. So I'm going to open the rest up to you, and then we'll do a closing.
Okay. I'm a pander a bit here since I
Okay.
have two African American women. I have a poem for African American women, and I ain't read it in a bit, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. How about a little light? How about I tell you, your beautiful dark skin is the source of life's delight. That the world hates it because its perfection cannot be duplicated in a lab. How about you tell me all of your struggles, all of your pain, and all of your ambitions? How about I listen? How about a little life? Or better yet, love? No. How about understanding? From where I'm standing, even your own men burn you from simply lending a hand and cry wolf when you no longer sacrifice yourself to be his down bitch. While other cultures vulture become your stand-in, how about a little light? How about I tell you how much I love you and those words feel all right? How about I tell you that someone looks just like you and she changed my life? Dark skin, beautiful natural hair, and a smile of the gods, and that laugh, well, that one's a little weird. How about I tell you life ain't fair? All you want is to be accepted for who you are and embraced for what you have to offer and not shamed by the men that say they care. How about a moment of silence? For the death of that child who once saw the world as this amazing, beautiful place where she's princess and would one day become someone's queen, who grew to hear songs about her being a thought, a hoe, and see degrading memes, who's led to believe that 100,000 likes equates to self-worth. How about we mourn for her? Now lift your head. It's a new day, so how about right here, right now, we practice a new wave? How about the first time we take you out, it's not a movie, but a decent meal. Nothing too fancy, just something intimate enough to keep the conversation real. How does that feel? How about accepting you? Whether it's yes, bitch, or that's right, queen. How about society? How about when society calls you ugly, gadget, ratchet, ghetto? He, no, we step up in defiance and tell them that she, no, you are the sun. So to each day, you are beautiful, classy, and majestic. And if that seems like too much to ask, then how about a poem that lets you know that I get it and I'm sorry? To anyone who's been robbed of control of their own body, to anyone that fears me because of the words, abuse, or actions that someone else has committed to make you feel ungodly, I'm sorry. How about a little light? And how about you smile and show your world your God name? And that's the point.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Wow, that's, geez. I don't even know. That was talent, skill, passion, and heart. So many different words. I thank you for sharing that. I thank you for adding even more depth to the interview that was already there. I thank you for agreeing, Jessica. I thank you as well. All my thanks to both of you. This has been a beautiful Sunday. I enjoy speaking to each of you, from learning more about you, learning your journey. I look forward, and I say this sincerely, I look forward to what else you guys have coming. You talking about grinding. I see it. I see it in this lady every day. I see it and I hear it. I hear it in you. And make sure you go and let your wife know exactly what you said, because it is different when you are married and you wake up and you look at that person and it's a different life you are building and you get it. And I wish you many, many years of wedded bliss. And it's going to be many different struggles, but long as you keep that mindset and you keep working through it, 30 years from now, you'll still be talking about your wife. And both of you guys are going to continue to grow together as you raise your beautiful children. Same with Jessica and her son. So anyway, thank you guys for another amazing episode of Self-Care Saturday with Indy Jones. If you haven't already done so, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and just stay tuned for our next episode. Until next time, be safe, stay strong, and stay healthy. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to support me, please visit my website at ndjonesparanormalpleasure.com, where you can find more information about my self-care journals, coloring books, and paranormal romance and urban fantasy novels. If you want to purchase some fun goodies for yourself or a friend, stop by the store tab, where I have links to all of my shops. And finally, if you want to stay updated on upcoming events, giveaways, and all things Indy Jones, please follow me at Indy Jones Author on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. Until next time, thank you.